everyone. I'm Dr. Nicole Sapphire, along with Jason Chaffetz, Dagan McDowell, and Joey Jones, and welcome to the Big Weekend Show. The big story tonight, it's Elon Musk versus a San Francisco Democratic socialist. Musk is throwing some big-time jabs at a San Francisco supervisor for wanting to prevent armed security guards from doing their jobs. The tech mogul posting on X, Dean Preston should go to prison. Preston introduced legislation to prevent security guards from pulling out their guns to protect property. A Board of Supervisors committee just passed the plan last week. Is this the right move for the city currently being overrun by criminals? Well, Preston seems to think so. Preston says, quote, "I believe strongly that nobody should ever have to die just because they are suspected of stealing property." Now that Elon Musk is taking him on and calling on him to be sent to prison over it, Preston isn't happy. He said in a statement, quote, "A billionaire calling for a democratically elected official to be sent to prison for no reason is textbook fascism." So, Jason, I thought it was an interesting choice of wording for that post about calling Elon Musk a fascist when the supporting the right to defend oneself and defend one's property, that's actually fundamentally American through the Constitution, through the Castle laws and doctrines. What do you take of Musk's post? Hyperbole? What do you think?
It was a little over the top. People don't go to jail just because they introduce a piece of legislation that they don't like. But nevertheless, I can understand the frustration, particularly in California, particularly there in San Francisco, because nobody seems to be fighting back. And so here you have an armed security guard who feels like their life is threatened. The person allegedly, the allegation said to the security guard, "I'm going to stab you," and that person ends up getting shot and killed. Now, the district attorney is not going to charge that person. But if you commit these types of crimes, people have the right to protect themselves and the property. You don't know if they're going to turn a knife or a gun or strangle you. And so there has got to be some pushback. First of all, there needs to be more of a police presence, and there needs to be more prosecution of criminals who actually commit these crimes. Because they just seem to tacitly say, like Dean Preston, the Board of Supervisors, he's the guy who's just tacitly letting this happen and encouraging these types of things to go on with no consequence. That's why so many people, law-abiding people, are frustrated.
Well, Joey, so, Jason's mentioning Banco Brown, who is a 24-year-old. He was suspected to be shoplifting and ended an altercation. It sounds like he threatened that he was going to stab the security guard. The security guard shot and killed him. But one thing I want to talk about, so right now Preston is saying that the answer to this is disarming private security guards. When you talk about unarmed security guard death has increased 350% since 2007. Over 110 died last year. And punishments for unarmed security guards being killed is significantly less than a policeman being killed. Now, we saw what happened when you take a couple of bad apples when it came to policemen, and then you had the whole defund the police movements because of a few bad actors. We saw the consequences from that. The answer cannot be to disarm the protectors because we know the offenders will be armed.
They're not going to disarm security guards. Let me tell you why. There are more security guards than there are police officers. San Francisco is at a huge deficit of police officers. And who has armed security guards? Not just the Walgreens. All the celebrities and tech CEOs and people of affluence, probably Nancy Pelosi and everyone else in that city, has an armed security guard because they know the police can't protect them. So they're not going to disarm security guards. What they're saying is, if you look at the regulation, I think it's from 1981, or I guess it would be a city ordinance or law, that allows for security guards to use a weapon in defense of stolen property. The police in state law don't have as easily, they're a little bit more stringent on them, which they should be because they are acting as the state. And we should have more protections from the state than even each other in a way. And also, police have other tools, other techniques, other opportunities. They're being called in response to something. A security guard is basically your ability to protect yourself at the last opportunity. So I'm not saying that a security guard should be able to shoot somebody easier, but the idea of using the Second Amendment or using an armed way of defending yourself when someone's attacking you, if you're not trained like a police officer, you're not going to be asked to do the things like using a taser that a police officer can do. And so what they're saying is they're comparing what a security guard can use deadly force for compared to what a police officer can, and it's kind of apples and oranges.
Right. I mean, the whole thing seems a bit muddied. But Dagan, one of the things is when you just look at California in general, I mean, it's dwindling. The first time in decades, since 2020, you have population leaving California. You have businesses leaving at alarming rates. And this isn't just anecdotally. A new study out of Hoover Institute at Stanford show businesses are leaving more than they ever have before. About 300 businesses have left, most going to California. And a lot of this is largely due to the lack of law and order, the rise in crime, and the taxes. You know, Elon Musk posted on X, you know, he is blaming Dean Preston and some of the other Democratic politicians. Dean Preston needs to be fired. He is arguably the person most responsible for the destruction of San Francisco. So when he's talking about Preston's policies, also add the zero bail policies, I mean, it's like they're intentionally trying to get people to leave California.
Don't they know these policies don't work? They treat, and these are liberal governors, liberal lawmakers, liberal mayors, liberal district attorneys, and this is throughout California, this is in New York, in Chicago, in Philadelphia. They treat criminals like the victims, and they treat law-abiding residents and citizens like garbage. And I'll point to Dean Preston. He posted, went on social media to urge San Francisco to launch a campaign to tell visitors not to leave things in their cars because they might get broken into. So what does that tell you? That if you're asking for it, you're asking to be robbed if anything is in your automobile. And somebody, that is in essence, he equated it with the Buckle Up campaign to restrain drivers, encourage people to use seat belts. No, it's not the same thing. That it's not even. But I want to step back because I follow this young woman on Twitter. Her name is Manny, and she lived in the Tenderloin and she posted a video some time ago of a fire, a homeless encampment caught on fire, and her building almost caught on fire. And she was very vocal about there's no one in this city that's protecting people who have to live and go to work here. She has since left. And when Elon Musk said Dean Preston should go to prison, she said, you can say that again. So Dean Preston can lose his mind over Elon Musk and try and make the problem about him. It's not. It's problems that these left-wing lawmakers created there. Well, and I just want to mention one more thing. There is a man, Johannes John Tewolde. John lost his life. He was a shopkeeper who worked in the outer Richmond district in the Richmond market. And he tried to stop a thief from taking beer. And he was beaten with a baseball bat. And he died shortly thereafter. And they don't prosecute shoplifting. They don't prosecute this type of theft. And this is what happens. He was doing the right thing because in his heart and in his soul, he would not let someone steal from where he worked. And I just want to know if Dean Preston went to his funeral. I want to know if lawmakers in San Francisco went to his funeral. But I spent all afternoon reading about that man's life. He had just become a U.S. citizen a few months prior to his death. And he came to this country to make a better life for his family. And so when people talk about nonviolent crime, there is no such thing. And when they start treating shoplifting as if it's not a crime, it is a crime, and it leads to the death of people who believe in protecting property and protecting things around them. So to John's family or to Johannes Tewolde's family, I prayed for you today, and I hope everybody prays for them.
Well, that is a horrible, horrible story, and not the only one that we hear. We keep hearing about a lot of innocents' lives being lost, and it's not just Elon Musk who is criticizing these policies. You actually have 12 cities in California now suing L.A. over their new zero bail policy. They know that this is just doing more and more, taking us away from a state of law and order, and it will promote more violent crimes.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.